Good day, my name is Christelle from France de Klerk, Independent Technical Analyst. Siyabonga wanted us to look at PPC. And Siyabonga, I think not only you, but a lot of other investors are waiting for possible higher lows or turnarounds on PPC. What I do want to mention here is in the past, if we look at the history of the price action of PPC, we can see there were times when PPC looked like it wanted to turn around with all these long lower shadows, just for a blip, but then to continue to the downside. Beautiful example of a dragonfly candle, but was not confirmed and continued to the downside. Another beautiful example of a dragonfly candle, and take note, the stock remained oversold here below 20 for quite a while. But this bullish engulfing candle confirmed optimism, but it was barely sustained, and then again a sell-off to downside. This was a beautiful example of a morning star formation. A bearish candle followed by a doji with a bullish or positive candle. But that morning star formation was definitely not enough. It barely lifted the stock, again, just to continue the sell-off. And the same story happened here. Inverted hammer candle, possible turnaround, but guess what? The share just consolidated sideways. So in this case, what we normally suggest is to wait for higher lows. What do we mean by that? It means the share should increase, pull back, some profit taking, and then rise again. And the previous resistances must change into a support again. Because that will tell you, or that will imply, that the buyers that the sellers, that previously have taken profit at a certain level has now been overruled, and that the buyers were strong enough to take it higher. Remember, no matter how profitable or unprofitable a company might be on paper, it's only when there are more buyers than sellers that can take this share price to higher levels. So from a technical view, we should wait for higher lows on PPC. So if we draw in resistance levels, we can see the first strong resistance that has to be overcome on PPC is waiting at 68 cents. If we take the another line and we look for touching points 2 or 3, remember a trend line is seen as temporarily when it only has 2 touching points, and it can either be shadows or real bodies. But when it's got 3 or more touching points on the trend line, it is seen as a strong resistance or support line, and the next level is waiting at 90 cents. So you can use those levels, Siyabonga, to accumulate the stock more, or to wait for confirmation that the sellers have dried up and that the buyers are left. Obviously, when these support levels, and I'm going to take this line here, when these support levels at 48 cents, that was confirmed support on the 14th of September, 21st, and that 28th September. Remember, these are weekly graphs. Below 48 cents, we will be concerned about PPC again, because that will mean that the sellers want to continue to take the stock to higher levels. Use those resistances as accumulation levels. Take good care of that 48 cent level, otherwise we can see lower levels on PPC. Jess wanted us to look at Discovery. Discovery, Jess, has got a double top formation on it. So it's interesting to see that there's quite a few double top formations on the graphs this week. Now, a double top is when the share, this is a rising channel, but at the top of the channel, the share pulled back, found support, rose again, found resistance at almost the same level it did previously, and retraced. And when that previous support changes into a resistance, and that is waiting at, I'll give you that exact level, 119 Rand 54. When that level changes into a resistance, the double top formation will be confirmed, the warning formation will be confirmed, and the target of that warning formation is the length of the left or the right leg projected downwards from where it will be confirmed, which means Discovery can go back to 104.81. The warning of this formation would be wiped off the table only when these supports waiting at 135, resistance levels at 135.29 changes into a support again. In other words, the share needs to find enough buyers to change these levels into a support again. Also take note that this double top formation can take the stock back to that red line. the 40-week moving average. And if we zoom out, we can see that again, for long-term investors, this 40-week moving average was almost the only benchmark they could have used. Because time and time again, if we look back at the history, the stock could just not find enough buyers to lift it through that 40-week moving average. Only here in about June, it managed to change it into a support. It tested it, changed it into a support, and ever again, since then, the share gave a beautiful rally. But if we look at the stochastic indicator, Trace, it is also to have confirmed a divergence, already pulled back, so profit taking is definitely taking place at the moment. If you're keen to look at Discovery again, wait for the share to be oversold. Wait for the share on the stochastic, or no matter what indicator you use. Wait for it to become oversold, which makes the probability of the share to bounce to higher levels just more likely. And remember, like in PPC's case, the stock can continue to decline even if the share remains oversold. But then you can use the candles to help you in your decision making, or to wait for possible turnarounds to make a decision to either take profit or maybe consider a stop loss. Ria wanted us to look at TabCorp in Australia. Now, this is a gambling and entertainment company. And if we look at it, we can see that there is a beautiful cup and handle formation. And remember, a cup and handle formation can have multiple handles. So in this case, and I want to just draw in the confirmation line or the trend line that will confirm this cup and handle formation. So I've got the cup, and I've got one, maybe two, and my third handle. Only when $3.68 Australian dollars, $3.68 changes into a support again, will this a positive formation be confirmed. When these previous support levels changes into a resistance level, and that is waiting at $3.33 and $3.18, will the optimism around this formation become obsolete? And what I like about this graph, Ria, is the fact that I've got a gap there. A gap on the candle graph, especially on a weekly graph, is an important target that one can use for upside. And that gap is waiting between $4.03 and $4.12. And remember, the rules around gaps are they always get closed. It can take days, weeks, months, decades, but at some stage the share price has to go and close that gap. What do worry me about this graph, Ria, is the fact that since about the week of the 24th of August, the share could not change this red line that represents my 40-week moving average into a support, and that is seen as negative. Now, this candle is not finished yet completely. A beautiful example of a gravestone doji candle. And if this candle remains like it is, by Friday close, that tells us that the sellers are still keen to take profit. They feel that the stock might be overvalued and that they rather consider moving to something else. Richard wanted us to look at the Grand Canyon Education. Also listed on the NASDAQ, ticker of the share is LOPE. And Richard, we can also see that there was a double top formation that was confirmed when $84.61 changed into a resistance. Now, at the moment, the share is consolidating below that neckline. So the question is, one, if they do not change $84.61 into a support, how low can the share go? So I can take the right shoulder of this double top and project it downwards, which means should the full formation play out, Grand Canyon Education can go back to $63.24. But take note, the share is oversold. I've got a beautiful divergence where my K line, the shorter moving average, tested the red line and bounced to higher levels. And that implies that the buyers are protecting the stock. They do not want the share to go below $78.35, a critical level that needs to remain a support in order to sustain the momentum to the top. Obviously, again, that red line, the 40-week moving average, waiting at $86.06, has to change into a support to change this long-term sentiment towards this stock to higher levels again. Cornelia wanted us to look at the pound against the rand. So at the moment, this currency GBPZAR has got, and we've said it before, a possible inverse cup and handle formation. Kwanele, I cannot call this, or some technical analysts might call it a double top, but for me, this previous resistance, that second resistance, so the first rally found resistance there, came back, tested that neckline, weakened again the rand, found resistance and retraced again. That second resistance is a little bit too low than that previous one, and that's why I would rather call it an inverse cup and handle formation. A massive handle nevertheless, or maybe lower highs, whatever you want to call it. It implies the same story. And it seems like we're building here again on a second handle. Okay, take note there, Kwanele, that red line, the 40-week moving average, since the week of the 14th of September, has been tested and tested. But if the rand starts to consolidate below 21.48 against the pound, the long-term sentiment towards the rand against the pound will change to a stronger rand. Over time, we know that the rand always weakens against, the dollar and the pound. But as soon as that 40-week moving average changes into resistance, the long-term sentiment changes to the expectation of a stronger rand. Yes, what is the target of this inverse cup and handle formation on the rand against the pound? It can take it back to 1960 against the pound, and even, hold your breath, if I take the full length of that cup, can take the rand back to 1769 against the pound. 40-week moving average is the critical level, the support level that needs to remain in place if you do not want this inverse cup and handle formation to play out, is waiting at 20 Rand 68. 20 Rand 68 needs to remain a support on the rand against the pound in order to sustain the weakened rand. But if that level changes into a resistance, unfortunately, the expectation will be for a stronger rand then back to those levels that I've highlighted. Only when 23 Rand 22 and 23 Rand 68 changes into a support again, can I assume that the rand will continue to weaken against the pound. Please feel free to send through your requests for next week's show. Have a fantastic week. Take care.